good day, everybody joining us on the fourth Lean Unplugged session. Today we will talk about Lean leadership as part of Gemba core activities. In a few moments, we will start a presentation of 20 minutes after a short introduction. Then my colleague Jeroen, renowned expert on Lean leadership, and DJ Duarte, expert on TPS and Sensei, will show all their insights on today's theme. Now we will start the presentation. I please want to ask you shut down the microphones. After that, you will get all the chance to ask your questions. Please, DJ, continue.
Okay, next slide, please. So we started this several sessions ago. This is our fourth session. And I just want to reiterate what we think is very important for what we call DSM, or daily shop floor management. And it's the mindset, the way you think, but it's also the words and how you express those words. And it's also in the actions that you do. And, you know, Toshihiko wrote a book about this called True Kaizen. And I really want to resonate that with his book and his purpose and what he does here in Japan, because that's what changes the culture right there, is when you have those right words that are mixed with the right mindset, delivering the right actions, you create that sense of caring, that consistency, and that, you know, compassion to do things better in your organization. Next slide, please. So leader standard work, as you can see, here's our fourth topic that we were sharing in the overall core engagement activities. Okay. Obviously, if you want to see the previous ones, talk to my counterparts there at Patagonia. They have all the insights they can share with you. But today we really want to focus on the application of how to develop yourself with a focus on not just how you do your work, but why you do your work and what the value of that burning why is. Yep. Next slide, please. So leader standard work, or LSW, like we like to call, is actually part of the 14 principles within the Toyota way. And of course, we're here because we want to grow leaders. And in order to grow leaders, you have to understand the work. You have to live the type of philosophy that TPS inspires. And you know, I can use Lean and TPS interchangeably as long as you're living by the principles and the practices. But if you're only just doing the practices, you know, implementing an and-on, but you don't really understand the purpose of having the escalation system and blah, 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 then you're not really doing TPS. And so it's an interchangeable thing, but you got to teach that to people. You've got to coach them. You've got to mentor them. And that's part of the process of what Toyota does. They spend an enormous amount of time, as my colleagues witnessed, in investing in people and developing them. Yeah. Next slide, please. So what is a good leader, right? So the old saying is, if you're going to be a great leader, it starts because you were a great follower. You understood how to work with others, how to, you know, use their strengths and adapt your strengths to their needs, and be able to be a more, you know, resilient type of team. But the thing that I've witnessed a lot is, yeah, you get things done. Yes, you work as a team, but there's very little emphasis on the team leader themselves, the shop floor leader, developing other leaders. That's usually given to like a third party or another department within the organization, like human resources, you know, for competency development, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But we're not talking about necessarily going to workshops. We're talking about learning how to do the skill better than you did yesterday. Yeah. And over a 30-day period, you should be able to do 90 seconds of solid type of work in that cycle that allows you then to grow to other 90 seconds cycles of work. Yeah. And that's the whole point about it, right? But the last thing is, a good leader is also very selfless. Yeah, they give up their time, their effort, even reorganize their schedules so that they can adapt to helping others grow and develop. Yeah, so I think that's critical in that type of thinking. Next slide, please. So just like anything else, you know, LSW, or leader standard work, needs to have a playbook. And I don't care if you're going through MPI processes or you're using, you know, some strategy like a lean canvas. They all have a framework that allows you to organize yourself and do certain kinds of activities. And so that's what we refer to as your playbook. And what we'd like to do today with you during this 20-minute session is actually help you understand what your playbook should look like, yeah, and how it should be utilized if it's going to be an effective leader standard work approach. Okay, next slide, please. So some of the key characteristics about LSW is it takes a lot of your guesswork out of what you do. So during the day, if you happen to be a shop floor leader, probably 90% of your day is already scripted for you. And so you know exactly what are the things you're going to be doing during the day, and it helps you become more effective. But the key also is that you're spending that time in the areas that you know are going to give you that kinds of clear outcomes you're expecting of your team. Yeah. The larger your team, the more difficult it is to apply leader standard work to that kind of a level of 90%. And that's one of the reasons why Toyota has this pyramid approach of 5 to 8 workers per team leader. Yeah. And that's staggered throughout the entire system. I don't care if you're in the quality department or if you happen to be in the, production department or paint or metal, it doesn't matter. They try to structure teams in 5 to 8 people so that it's manageable in A, developing the people, but 2, also resolving issues with those people. Yeah. Within the process or the system. Good. Next slide, please. So what do we really think about when we're talking about typical leader standard work? Well, on the left-hand side, you can see that, 80% of your time, if you organize around it and you leave yourself 20% flexibility, these are the type of things that you would be doing every day, once a day, and also other things that you do, multiple times a day. And as you mature up the ladder from a team leader to a group leader to area manager, some department head, there's less standard work in your time because you have to be more flexible with your time due to other situations, potentially strategic stuff, potentially operational stuff. It doesn't really matter, but you got to be a little bit more flexible. But you can see on the right-hand side, here's how those people would schedule their time, and whether it be once a day or multiple times a day. And, as I was working in several organizations, both here in Japan, believe it or not, I actually was working in a Japanese pharmaceutical company here in Japan, teaching them leader standard work because it's not something that's embedded in Japan. Yeah. It's something that they have what is called a senpai kohai kind of relationship. And a senpai means I'm actually the follower, and senpai is the leader, and the kohai is like the follower. And whatever the senpai says, the kohai just does it. Yeah. So they just fall in line, they go through it. But when you organize your day and you try to fit that kind of lifestyle together and working in the environment that way, it tends to have conflicts in normal non-lean environments. So it's one of those things you really have to work on and build. Okay. And it's not difficult to do. It's just it requires a lot of discipline. Yeah. Next slide, please. So I usually start off by making a sheet of paper as the one that you see on the left-hand side, fold it into 3. It's basically an A3 sheet of paper, not an A3, I'm sorry, an A4 sheet of paper that you fold in 3 parts, yeah? And on the left-hand side, you want to list hour by hour, sometimes every 30 minutes, it depends on how your day is, what time you start and what time you go home. And when I say start, I don't mean what time your official start time is. You may come in 30 minutes early. I want to know the time that you actually arrive to the actual time that you go home, because you're trying to maximize that within your schedule. So first, you organize around time. Second, you organize around the daily actions you would like to engage. If you happen to be doing in-process audits, or like what we like to call komishibai, going to see, doing waste hunts, doing TWI on the job type of training, those should all be planned out. And you should be able to look at your schedule and know that 9 o'clock is your morning meeting with the managers. 9:30 is the one that you're going to help somebody learn something new. 10:30, you're going to share with the other team leaders of your organization what you've learned, whatever it might be. You just want it really well organized. In the middle, that's where we like to write our notes. And there's a reason why it's in the middle. The middle signifies that I can be flexible at writing something down and then saying, plan this for tomorrow in your notes section. Yeah. So that I need to make that happen. Or you fit it into your schedule because the lines are symbiotic. They go across laterally the same. So when it says 8:30 here, all the way across is 8:30. I can put things in there and be able to fill in the time that I'm going to do this in addition to what I've already written. Yeah. And then, of course, there are things that you come upon that you just don't want to forget. For example, you're walking into Gemba, you saw something, you just write it down. And it's something that then later on you figure out why was that there? You don't go try to solve it then, you just want to remember it. And then on the far right-hand side of the sheet of paper is typically those things that you want to do multiple times a day, or you want to assign to others tasks that need to get accomplished. So, for example, you might have written down the palette of whatever was sitting there, and you might want to then convey that to the warehouse folks to move it. And this is a way that you actually organize on how you do that. Now, don't get me wrong, this can also be done inside of a system. In other words, you could have a little iPad, you could have your phone, you could use your, some latest technology. And of course, if you were to go into Outlook, this format that you see on the right exists in Outlook, just the way it is. So you can use Outlook to actually organize your daily event in the same manner. One of the things I would caution you on that is, until it becomes a habit, I wouldn't make it electronic. And because the habitual nature of people is, once it's electronic, it becomes easy. So then you just like, yeah, I'll just copy paste. Yeah, that'll be good. Same thing tomorrow. Same thing tomorrow. Every day should be different. So you should collect 14 to 21 days of work on a piece of paper to see what are the variables and what are the commonalities. What are some of the things that you dealt with over that 3-week period, for example? And then you know the timeframes that you can associate more activity to certain kinds of actions. Yeah. And that's one reason why we like to have it documented first by the team leaders before we actually let them get to Outlook or some other electronic means of doing it. Yeah. The whole point is it's time and it's task driven, and it really helps you become more effective at the things that you do. Next slide, please. So here's some key points that I'd like to sort of leave you with when it comes to leader standard work. And something that's not written on here, but I want to say up front, don't start with many, start with one, this person. Know how it works for you first so that you can be able to organize other people around you, and then start to circle small. So go from yourself to 1 or 2 other people, from 3 or 4 other people, and so on and so on. Don't try to put together a class and say, we're going to start implementing leader standard work. It'll fail instantly. So that's something very important. Make sure you own it before you decide you want others to own it as well. Okay. You're doing this LSW activity for yourself because you care. You want to show people you care. You want to show that every time something is spoken to you, you understand the value of it and you capture it and you do something about it. The 4 C's of trust in a book called Powerful Conversations is very, very important. Yeah. And when you start thinking about being consistent and being and showing that caring and also understanding how that contributes to the overall commitment of yourself and others, that's when you'll know that your reality is coming full circle. Yeah. Learn by doing it. So I said earlier, start with yourself, but also learn by doing it with others so that you can say, hey, how's that working for you? You have a sit down conversation with them. You put it in your plan, go see DJ at this time, talk about your leader standard work. Yeah. So learn by doing it, because there's not one way to do it for everybody. It can be modified so that it works well for you. I've seen people put it on little cards, plastic laminated cards, that Monday is different than Tuesday. And so they just pick up a card. They know they got this, and they know what times are available to them for other meetings, for other kinds of activities, because they've generated history of knowledge to be able to create that 5 or 7 day card system. Yeah. And last but not least, always improve it. So just like anything else, PDCA applies here, right? You created a standard, SDCA. Now you're going to start planning changes to it to make it more effective to you. If you've ever read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or Teens, they talk about, that level of understanding of what's important, big rocks compared to small rocks, right? And leader standard work is actually putting all your big rocks in first and letting the small rocks come to you as things evolve. That's what it really is. Okay. And so you're putting first things first in order to be successful at adopting the leader standard work in itself. And don't be afraid to change. You know, it should change. It should get better. It should get more resilient. It should get more focused. Absolutely. It can be a half a day type of thing for you. If that's how it works out best for you. It could be once a week kind of activity for you, if that's how it turns out best. But you don't know that until you've done it over a 14 or 21 day period. If you just judge that on yourself right now, you're actually probably missing the value of leader standard work in itself. I had a good friend of mine who recently was working with Shell Oil, and his whole purpose for working with them as a contractor was the implementation of leader standard work. That was it. Nothing else. They were just concerned that all operators, all leaders of operators are adopting a standard approach to the daily activities, from communication cells to Gemba walks to waste hunts to training others, and so on and so on and so on. Yeah. So it should be something that grows. And I hope I shared enough that gives you a little bit of excitement about LSW, where we can have a great dialogue. Next slide, please. I think something's for you next.
Yeah, thank you, DJ.
Exactly, thank you, Gies. So let's continue from the whole structure that DJ just explains. And let's go down to the bottom now, to the hearts and the minds of the team leaders and the way they behave on the Gemba. Let's talk about the communication and their behavior in general on the Gemba. And I would like to take a moment for reflection for yourself, for your own organization. Get in mind with your team leaders, your foreman, your first operational line of leadership, and what are they doing actually during the day? Are they on the Gemba? And when they do a day start, how do they behave? How do they communicate? What wording do they use? Give it a moment to think about it, and think about it accurately. Since I will go on in this presentation more about their behavior and the effect of their behavior on the operators and other colleagues around. So you might have this whole structure that DJ just explained, but when a team leader comes to the floor and says, hey, you have to do this, hey, you do it wrong. Sorry, but could you please be so kind to move this away? That kind of behavior, we see that every day. So the interaction with the operators, that should be in order to have the effect that DJ just explains. So in a lot of cases, we have these infrastructure, the TPS or the lean infrastructure or the quality management structure. But how do you perform then in a day start? How do you perform with problem solving? Well, here are some, of course, funny examples of how not to do it, because you get an unsafe environment. Just by using the words, just by pointing your finger to somebody, just by telling somebody to hurry up or blame somebody. We see that every day. So take a moment of reflection, and how are your team leaders doing on the Gemba? Are they on the Gemba at all? Or are they somewhere at meetings discussing issues that the shop floor doesn't know anything about it? Are they involved? Are they engaged? Well, these kind of questions should be raised by the production management and the team managers. Yeah. So what we want to do is a transformation to, next slide, please, a much more safe environment. An environment where you, for instance, ask a question. Yo, Boudewijn, do you know what happens over here? Do you happen to be interested in this or that? Do we understand this number, this production number, or this safety issue? So by raising questions, you create a safe environment instead of ordering somebody or telling somebody something to do. Well, and that's difficult because team leaders are in 9 out of 10 times are operators with a lot of experience, with decades of experience, are very good professionals, and they get this team leader position. They are the very best operators, and then they're going to tell the operators, hey, you should operate this machine like this or like that. You should do it like this. Well, and there it goes wrong. Because now the operators need to grow. Yes?
Yeah, I love that you said that because, you know, especially in the IT type of sectors, that's exactly what happens. You're a really good IT specialist. You're really good at coding or something. All of a sudden, you're elevated to a leader, and you haven't even been trained to be a good leader. So that's something that this little step is a means of mentoring people on how to be a better leader with your time, with your associates, and so on. And the second point I'd like to make is in both of these slides, the only thing that changed was green and red and the verbiage. Yeah, but the pictures, the behavior is very noticeable. You see somebody holding his head, right? He's like, oh my God. The other guy's, you know, sort of wincing like, So behavior is very noticeable. And how you engage that behavior is critical to what you were just saying, you know.
Exactly. So as a leader, I gave a training yesterday and I said, as a leader, as a team leader, you are always on. You're never off. The whole working day, you are there. Even when you are not there, but in a meeting, operators have the opinion, oh, he's in a meeting. He's important, or he's doing something that's not important. So people have opinions. So you are on the whole day, and you need to be aware of everything that you do and you say. So the list that DJ presented helps. It gives structure to your day. It gives structure to what to do and when. But then you have to do it correctly. So let's go to a few examples and a tool to help you. Next slide, please. Please train your team leaders always to follow this procedure, just to create a safe environment. When you approach the Gemba, when you go to an operator or a group of operators, always smile, always. Never look angry, never look serious because there's a big issue. No, smile. And when you smile, you raise a question. You don't tell somebody what to do, no, you raise a question. Do you understand this number? Is this safe? What's happening over here? Do you understand the work? Do you need training? Do you have the right information? Ask a question. Why is that so important? By asking a question, something very important happens, and you should take notice of this. When you ask a question, you bring responsibility to the other. Because now somebody else has to think about the question and think about the answer. So your logical next step is to listen. You have to ask a question and then shut up. Listen to what the other has to say. Give him time to reflect. Give him time to think about it. So it raises his authority. It raises his creativity. It raises his participation in the whole communication. That's entirely different than telling somebody what to do. And when you have listened to it, don't go over it. Don't have a stronger story. No, acknowledge the answer. You can learn from the answer. You can learn whether somebody understood the question. You can learn whether somebody understood the situation. You can learn from the answer. So you acknowledge the answer. You have heard it. You learn from it together then. You can raise more questions, of course. And then you start cooperating on the question raised together as a team. Whether the team is of 2 or 5 people, you can debate about that. And then at the end, please thank somebody. Say thank you. Appreciate your answer. Whether it's right or wrong, not important. Just get this trustful relationship with each other. Smile again and then continue. Well, let's try this for some practical situations. Next slide, please. We are here at the day start. And the team leader is there with a group of operators, let's say 4 or 5 people. And the question is, today we have to produce 10 machines, for instance. So what we encounter quite often is that the foreman then says, man, we have to produce 10 machines. Let's do it. When you want involvement, when you want responsibility with the operator, you turn it around and you say, all right, guys, the challenge is 10 machines today. Do you think the Gemba is in condition to perform this? Do you think we can do this today? By raising the question to the others, they can think about it and they can think about why. What is the condition of the Gemba? Are the stocks on level? Is the information there? Are we trained? Is there something in maintenance? You need to raise their attention to think about the question so that they can answer, yes, we can make 10. or perhaps not, whatever the answer is. So by raising the questions, you get the answer and you get a cooperation to make the challenge. Yeah, so next slide one. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry.
Nope.
Back. Yeah, thank you. The same the case with problem solving. Here we happen to be in a case together with DJ in a company, and we need to do problem solving. So an operator is producing for the customer. Period. That's what's the whole objective is. So if an operator says, sorry, I have a problem here, and he raises a light or he pulls the ending cord or whatever he does, then the foreman, the team leader, needs to be there on the shop floor, goes there and says, what is the problem? You hear, that's again a question. What have you observed? What have you experienced? You raise the question in order to work together, start working the same principle I just explained. Yeah, so if you do a day start or a problem solving or 5S, raise the question, work together, and make sure that the responsibility is with the operators. Thank you.
Yeah, can I add something real quick to that, if you don't mind?
Sure. Go ahead.
I love your circle and your 8 steps sequential process, because I think truly in the center of that circle, I would call it value, creating value. Yeah, creating value for them that you care enough, and creating value for you that you're understanding things better. Yeah.
Correct.
So I love that approach.
Yeah. Thank you, DJ and Jeroen, for your presentations. I would like to open the 60-minute unplugged part of the morning. We have 60 minutes left. Next slide, please. Please unmute your microphones, and when you have a question, raise your electronic hand so we can detect you have a question. Important to say is that only vocal asked questions can be answered. Any written questions cannot be answered, as this part of the morning is called Unplugged. Yeah, Mitchell, you have a question.
Hello, yes. So,
good morning. How are you?
Good. And you guys?
Yeah, thank you.
So I worked at DAF Trucks in the factory as a project leader. And I was responsible for transmitting a lot of production lines. So my question was, we had a lot of TPS. We also had our own PPS, we call it Packard production system. And it was a lot like TPS. But I really thought of it, and I saw our leaders, and especially top management, not really being top down. How you can make decisions when your leaders are not bottom up. Okay. So it was they really had the top down approach, but it was not like we had to make the decisions, and they make the end decisions because they are the head responsibles. But they not ever got with us, while we did everything like with all Lean Six Sigma methods, and we really thought about our goals with the stakeholders. But at the end, we presented it to top management, and what do we say? They made other decisions. How we could fix that?
Great.
Yeah, well, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in real quick. Hey, Mitchell, got a quick question for you. Is it Packard, P-A-C-C-A-R?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it's very interesting that about 5 years ago, maybe even 6 or 7 now, I actually went to Dallas, Texas, for Peterbilt, Ohio for Kenworth, also Washington, and we did what is called Gemba Core. And Gemba Core is a transition of leaders from the central part of the business, so shop floor to like manager level, and then everything above that should go through something else called end to end, and that's what makes the connections. Okay, but typically what happens is organizations don't fully fund or don't fully invest in adopting the principles the correct way, and that's a result of what you pretty much have walked away with. The site, every site is unique though. Every site, I've been to some sites that have adopted it from the top general manager all the way down to the shop floor, and they work smooth as anything. But when you have that, let's say, disparity of top leaders compared to Gemba shop floor leaders, right? The only way I know of breaking through is by demonstrating results and not requiring them to do anything. Demonstrating the result and then helping them understand why it happened and what was the benefit from a behavioral standpoint first, not from an outcome of metrics first. And I think that's the crucial piece, because honestly speaking, I came across people, not just in PACCAR, but Continental, you name it, big Phillips, that the site manager would be like, I don't know why you're here, but they sent you, so good luck. And I would say to them, listen, if you don't want me here, I'm back on a plane. No issues, But then they realize that, you mean, there's some business, there's some sincerity here. I want to help you. That's all I want to do. I just want to help you. And the best way I know of shop floor leaders helping grow leaders that are above is by modeling it and showing the behavior aspect first. Then the metrics come second. When you put the metrics first, you get their attention, and then it's lost. So get their attention with your behavior. That's the first thing I would say. Yeah. Yes. Anything you want to add,
Yes, definitely. Mitchell, how would you describe the level of ownership at the operational level in your situation?
I think that was very high. So as project leaders, you are responsible, and as DJ said, we always started with the conclusion and the goal when we presented something. But they were very cost driven, and when something was too expensive, they always asked for alternatives, and we had them, but they weren't. They had not the quality as we needed to have. So that's really the disadvantage of the goal.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's in your case, but maybe the other participants recognize the situation of a quite an hierarchical situation, top-down management leadership. What normally happens then is that the operators, not the team leader, but the operators, there's a lack of ownership. There might be fear, there might be uncertainty, there might be a laissez-faire mentality, there might be I don't care mentality, there might be anything. However, whatever the culture is with the operators, the result will be that there is a lack of decision-making by operators. People will not raise their hand, oh, sorry, there's a mistake over here. People will not cooperate with their colleagues for how to solve a problem. So problems continue to exist at operational level in these kind of situations. So that means the decision-making is very slow. So what we learned in Japan with DJ is that operators on a weekly basis, in an organization, they make 100, 1,000 decisions for improvement. They see something, they grab it, they improve it. In your kind of situations, when there's no ownership, you get a situation where there is an issue and it is solved 2 months later, if you are lucky. Because it's somewhere in a register or in a record, or it's somewhere in a meeting, whatever. So there's normally a lack of picking things up, looking at it together, change it, and go on. So you can analyze this. You can analyze the decision-making process at the very bottom level. I like to speak of the professional level. That's more respectful. And show your leaders how slow the decision-making process is, and how long problems keep coming back because they are not solved. So maybe you can make such an analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just add one more thing too. And this is probably happening where you're at, Mitchell, as well. You probably see the executive leaders or the hierarchical leaders come to the shop floor maybe once a day, maybe once a week. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not working there anymore. I'm working for myself now, but yeah.
That's okay. But what I would say to you is that is a clear statement that if you're not down on the Gemba 4 or 5 times a day getting your hands dirty at any level of leadership, then you're probably not really that engaged with this kind of philosophy called the Toyota production system, because that's what it really takes. It takes leaders to be hands-on with others, constantly looking at issues, constantly helping them see things differently, constantly, engaging them spiritually from a sense of what can we do to perfect this? Yeah, to make this even better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when that does not exist, that is truly leadership's behavior. And so you can't change that overnight, but you can change you, and you can change the way you engage your team, and that will stand out amongst everyone else. It just naturally will.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for the
Thanks for sharing,
information.
Mitch.
Once we worked together, DJ, we also had this discussion in which you explained something about the bubble of the management. Maybe you can explain this also in this situation, because not the awareness of the management or leaders what to do in what situations.
Yeah, let me just be. I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll just share this point real quick. Nothing is done in isolation in TPS. That's something I've been iterating for years. All right, but there are a lot of people that want to do things in isolation. For example, I've seen a lot of companies say, we're going to roll out a 5S program. Boop, that's stupid. Because it's not done just in isolation. It has to be done with communication cells. It has to be done with problem solving, getting that capability so that when you see things, you can resolve things. So the bubble concept, I think many of the colleagues that are here present today understand that 80% of all the problems are small. They exist at the lowest level. And that's where team leaders should be resolving most of the problems. Now, usually 10% of that, let's say if you had 80 problems, that means 8 problems went to the next level. That's the mid-tier. And that means you were unable to do that as a team leader. You need support. And that support could be more knowledge, expertise from another area. It could be an IT solution. It could be, maybe more mechanical driven, that you need some ME on, or some PE on, a process engineer or mechanical engineer, just something to help you along. And then out of those 8 that are elevated, usually 1 gets to the highest tier, and that's the executive tier. And that's because it's usually a capital thing. They cannot change this kind of situation due to the amount of capital investment it's going to require. So it determines on a decision. Here's the thing about those bubbles, though. It doesn't matter if somebody denies or changes the decision. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you explain it to everyone. And that's what Mitchell was saying. It was never explained. They would get up, they would share their ideas, they would share their things, but the top leadership would never explain why they did not go with that way and they're doing another way. And I think that's so important, and it has to be cascaded up and down the communication cells. That's why there's people issues, and that's where you would share this was a decision made. It's a people thing, right? And then there's process issues where you're collecting metrics, and then there's opportunities for improvement, which is continuous improvement, Kaizen, right? Where you're auditing the process, you're making great improvements. But when you cascade that up to the next level, to the next board, then they see what you're doing. Then they cascade back down. Hey, this is what we liked. How about this? And they make you think of other things as well. And that piece is always lacking because that system isn't embedded. Usually everybody has their own meetings. They talk to their own functional teams, and then they do their own functional things, right?
Yeah.
And that's not how it's really designed. It's really a collective system of resolving 80% of the problems at the lowest level, 15% of it at the mid level, and then 5% or less at the top level. Yeah.
Exactly. Well explained. And let me transform that to the Dutch culture or the Western European culture. So what we saw in Japan when we had a tour around from a general manager, this general manager could explain everything that happened on the shop floor. When we asked a question, why is this, why is that, he could explain because he was informed and he was involved and he had probably some contribution in the decision-making process. Well, if we transfer that to, let's limit to the Dutch culture, then it is almost like that the executive level has his own world. And oh yeah, there is production, but that's not our issue. That's not our responsibility. It looks in this country like there's a kind of complete separation of the work of executives and the work of operators and team leaders. They should solve the production problems. In the meantime, we do stakeholder analysis, risk analysis, strategy analysis, whatever it is. So what we see in our daily consultancy business is that the executive level is completely disconnected from, let's say, mid-level and operational level. And that bridge should be built somehow. And so going further on Mitchell's question, building that bridge, do you do that by bringing the information to the executive level and say, this is what's happening here. This is what caused your business case to go down. This is what caused your competitive advantage going down. Something like, some story like that. So talk about the money they lose or the customer interest they are losing. That's the type of language that they understand.
Okay, thank you. I see Ralf has raised his hand. Good morning, Ralf. Do we have a question?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Ralf.
Nice pictures in the last slide, by the way.
Yeah,
I recognize that
Hi there,
environment.
Because we love you.
Thanks. No, I agree with you. You don't know what you're saying on two different levels, and the question is how to bridge that gap. I think what DJ explained is a leader standard work can serve as a backbone on that. And then the easiest part is how to get that implemented in small steps. So what should be the first step taken there? We explained, or you explained about it, start with yourself and start small. But how do we expand that into bigger groups?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, could you please put up the slide where it talks about the 6 core elements of daily shop floor management? So I think it's slide 4 or 5 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta get this slide away.
This
Yeah.
one. Oh, this one. This one you mean, DJ?
Yes, that one, correct. Yeah. So I think the very first thing is, and obviously Ralf and I went through something together, and we did get one team leader to really understand what a communication cell was. We really got them to understand how to apply his daily routine in his leader standard work. And so when you see this, this is how you need to start slowly, step by step. You can pick any of these 6 things and start there. But in the end, what you should have as a outcome is there should be a certain kind of behavior you're expecting. There should be a certain kind of information being shared consistently. And then there should be a certain kind of level of KPI achievement because of it. Yeah. So that's where the first step is you got to get some cell, some team leader engaged to do it the right way and create that model. Yeah. And that's why I would say start with yourself and maybe that team leader so that you guys can work together and you're convincing them it does work. Yeah. Beyond that, what happens is that the expansion of it requires other leader involvement. So if I had a team leader that was in one area of the factory reporting to a supervisor, yeah, I would get that supervisor then engaged with that team leader as well. That would be my next step. And then once that's done, I would get other team leaders that are underneath that same supervisor engaged in that same model concept as well. And you don't have to actually change their cell. You don't have to change the way they're doing work. You're just trying to group together these 6 core engagement activities. You're trying to get other people to do it every single day. And that's the whole point. Now, once you have that one little area with a supervisor involved, that's when you bring executives down and you let those executives experience those core areas. And when I say executives, I mean managers, directors of departments, things of that nature. And then you question what would be difficult about doing that in your area? What are some of the challenges? And they'll come up with it. And your goal then is to resolve those. All those excuses you resolve. So when somebody says, well, we don't have enough people, we've got too much workload, you start looking at their workload. You start looking at how they do their work. And you make sure that everybody's balanced out doing work and that they have enough time to be able to implement these kinds of things. So that's how I approach it. Now, every company that is living and breathing the philosophies of TPS, there is an entire escalation system of communication, an entire escalation system of problems, an entire escalation system of, being able to audit other people's areas and share insights. So this is the basic piece that needs to be ingrained. And so my answer is simply get started. Start with a communication cell. Start with going to sea. Start with a waste hunt. Start with, trying to look at the process and audit it, see how well it's doing. Try to get some insights on what can be improved. Improve it. Solve it. Get it, make it better. That will take hold. But you got to be consistent at that. Yeah. And that's the biggest challenge I see in most organizations is they want it to go fast. And this is not something that goes fast. Toyota didn't do it in a year. Toyota didn't do it in 50 years. It took them a long time to ingrain this throughout their entire, 350 plus employee base. It takes time.
Definitely. Thank you. In addition to that, let's take it from a commercial perspective, because we get these phone calls like, can you train our operators or team leaders in 5S or day starts and so on. And the most questions we get is to start with 5S, and the second one is day starts. Those are the most questions that we receive. Well, obviously we encountered it and we go working on it, but people normally think too easy about it. So they think, well, put a board on a wall and then we have a day start. They do not realize that you need information on that board. And then they find out that they don't have that information. It's not simply not available, or it's not accessible by the team leader, for instance. So if you start either of those, I agree with DJ, but do it thoroughly. Overlook all the details that come together in a day start or a 5S or anything else. Be thorough.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree with that. In fact, the only thing else I would say that it just popped into my head while you were explaining that, is I've gone into very mature organizations that believed they had a good lean or TPS system.
Yeah.
And saw instantly where they were failing, and these are the core areas that they failed in. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So building it from scratch inside of a company is an entirely different journey than already have gone on a journey and have made mistakes and didn't adopt things in a practical sense, in a way that they could make contributions. It's entirely two different kinds of journeys. So you got to really look at what is the value you're trying to create, and where are you on your journey. And how will this help you move forward? Yeah.
Oh, thank you. We have another question. Mitchell, what's your question?
Yes, sorry for the interruption again. I want to add something to that. And I didn't learn that really with Lean Six Sigma, or I did, but there was not enough focus on that. I really learned that with Scrum, Agile, that it was like you have to be have more iterations in your communication process to the top management or senior management. I think that was what I reviewed afterwards for myself, that I needed to have more iteration and contact points with the management. So that's what that is what I wanted to add on to that.
Yeah.
Amen, Mitchell. Amen. In fact, Mitchell, I just want to say that I learned from Cardinal Health that there's a communication methodology called 7 times 7 ways. One thing you want to share with top management, you've got to share it 7 different ways. That's the only way it's going to get through. If you just send an email, your likelihood it's not going to happen, right? So good on you. Good on you.
All right, thank
you. Dennis, you have a question.
Yeah, this is Dennis. I am Mark. I have a question indeed. If I'm not a supervisor, he's the supervisor, but I'm in health and safety. But if we would start with, to start with lean, my question is, we don't have so much engagement from top management. So if we would start with it, you get the small problems, you get it out of the way, because that is what they can solve, the operators can solve themselves. And then you get bigger issues that we need support for. But if we don't get the engagement from the top management, or if it takes too long, how to and we communicate that it takes time to solve the bigger problems, but how to stay motivated, and how to break that boundary of the not engagement from top management. Because if we start with it and we show process, but how to stay motivated and how to break through the top management to get them involved in Lean Six Sigma.
Right?
Excellent. First of all, it doesn't matter what you're rolling out. It could be BPR, business process reengineering. It could be Six Sigma, any kind of transformational thing. Yeah. First, you should always start with something that's meaningful, purposeful, gets everybody's attention. So if you chose the wrong thing, instantly it automatically has a bad taste in people's mouth. But what I like what you said is you can get your people to resolve some of the low-hanging fruit, if you may, and that makes them feel good. But then you come into this area where you have to escalate something and nothing gets done. What I've recommended to others, and I've implemented in very large organizations that are site-specific, different cultures, is the ability to wait. You create a criteria for escalation. Yeah, and there should be, usually there's something that has to do with the strategy of the organization, the site. Will this support some sort of strategy? So you link it to that. In your case, you said you're OSHA. You would also link it to a safety thing, an occupational thing, and you weight them. You use a three-pronged scale, 1, 3, and a 9. So you know which issue stands out and which issue needs to be pushed harder. Yeah. And then you also have an operational one, and also then if it were to get implemented, how can we support it? A supporting it. So you have like 4 basic categorical areas, and you're weighting everything that needs to be escalated. So you know what to bring up, when, and for what reason. And I think that gets more attention, that gets more traction than just constantly escalating things and never getting something, impactfully done. Yeah. Because you know as well as I know, Dennis, and I forget what the other guy's name was, but you guys know as well as I know, there's a lot of things that go in front of these directors and executives of organizations. And to get their attention, you have, probably less than 45 seconds. So if you've done a little bit of due diligence, you've waited it out, and you explain it quickly. This is why we're sending this up, and this is the issue, and this is how it'll help the organization, whether it be strategy, safety, a process, whatever. That gets their response faster. And you may not like their response. That's okay. If they say no, you've done your part. But you can constantly come back in another angle, in another way, and so on and so on. I can tell you a story of mine. When I joined an organization, the first year, all they said is, DJ, here are your top 10 things to improve. Go out and improve. So I went over there and I started improving. And I got to like the 4th one, and I had an idea. I brought the idea up, smashed away. They didn't even consider it. 7 months into it, I had another idea, smashed away. Not until I completed those 10 things did they even consider any of my ideas. Then the second year, they gave me, a couple of more things to improve upon. They said, well, you brought up some ideas. What else could we do? Because now they've lost what else needs to be done. And you've gained credibility because you did do these improvements. And so about 6 months into that, I offered up something, and they said, yeah, let's do that. I got a yes. It took 1.5 years to get a yes on something I escalated. Yeah. And then by the 3rd year, everything ran through me. Everything was like, yeah, what do you think, DJ? What's your thoughts on this? Is this something we should do? So it's a growth process. You got to build it. It's got to build it. Yeah. And by prioritizing, it helps you communicate to those that are questioning the value of something. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, DJ. Agree with that. In addition to that, I'm not sure if you're familiar with a communication tool that's called MBTI of Myers-Briggs. We use it all the time with top management. And from that communication profile, you learn how executives think. And generally speaking, top management thinks about the future, thinks about plans, thinks about targets. They think about an imaginary world where they are heading with the organization. They do not think about the details. So if you go down to the shop floor and you find a machine and the machine is, there is something wrong and you have a cable behind the machine and the cable is not connected right, and the connection might cause danger, all those details they're not interested in. They should be, but they aren't. They have no time. So there's the 45-second that DJ refers to. So what we learn, what you train the operators and the team leaders is to use a different language. Well, gather safety issues, for instance, gather them from last month, be critical and put them in a kind of file or a view or a graph. And then you go to the executive and you say, we might get shut down next month because of 2 accidents. Do you want that? This is literally the phrase that I used last Monday with the director. Because the inspection, I'm not sure what the English word is, but the inspectie here in Nederland, they can, if there are a few accidents, they can just set you down. And then you got their attention. So you can equally refer to, competitive disadvantages or customers running away, whatever. So don't talk about the nitty-gritty details in their perception. They aren't. They are important, but to their perception, they can deal with a cable that's loose or something like that. And they say, just fix it. Transform your language, how you approach executive level management.
And that's something very interesting too, because I've done the Myers-Briggs or the Kersey Bates, and I've done it with a lot of high-level executive teams. And what I found out is about 92% of all executives are introverts.
Definitely.
They're not extroverts. Yeah. So that means they're very solemn. They're very into things. They like to take time in decision making. They're not very gregarious, outgoing. So your approach through understanding them and understanding yourself and working with other style leaders allows you to put it in their framework. Some want graphs, some don't. Some want the numbers, some don't. Some want to read, So it all depends on who you're addressing and how you're trying to get something across as well. So I love that correlation there. Thanks.
Thank you. Erik has another question. You've raised your hand for a long time ago, Erik.
It was.
Thank you for waiting.
Yeah, I will add something about what everybody says about this management involvement. You said in one of the 6 things what you present, one of them was solving issues quickly, and the adaptation to the Kaizen with Kaizen eyes. Then I'm wondering, how do you get the management? For example, you put all things together with all the problems. You have one big problem with all kinds of small problems from the Gemba. How to get the management when you have the whole thing together to bring them to the Gemba? I'm missing that. Is that also possible? Because then they see it. I'm the guy from the Gemba always. But how get them to the Gemba to get the problems solved easier?
Yeah. So first of all, Erik, thank you very much for that. And by the way, our next session will be on PSAQ.
Oh.
Okay. And so that's what's coming up next, which I think is fantastic lead into your question here. Well, first of all, there has to be at that highest level that you're making reference to. If they don't consistently go to the Gemba now, the chances of you walking in and saying, here's the problem, let's go see it, are very slim to none. Yeah. So, but you got to start somewhere. So sometimes what I've done is I've set up a meeting with 1 or 2 of that executive members and said, I'd like to have it at this location, and here's the purpose of it. And so then the meeting is actually set at a different, it's not in a table room. It's not in a conference room. It's at the location, you know? So then they're wondering like, why in the hell am I going here? And then once they get there, you explain, well, I knew that I couldn't do a good job in the conference room and explaining this. So I'd rather show you hands-on what we need help with. And then they're like, oh, and then they start getting involved, like, wow, what's going on here? You know? So I found that to be a very tactical, simplistic approach to getting people out of their desks and where you need them to help solve something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. We are going to do a 5S training starting next week, and we do that completely on the Gemba, completely. And we asked the director, "Can you kick it off?" Yes, of course, he said, "You can kick it off, no problem." It's on the Gemba.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't expect that. Do I have a screen? Do I have a monitor? No, you have to do it by heart.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should prepare it. Good idea.
Yeah.
Well done. So we literally helped him explaining what to say, how to say, what to do, and he was there and he did a perfect job.
Okay.
Can help.
And after that, he goes much often to the more often to the Gemba.
We will know. I will tell you in the future.
Okay.
Don't know yet this one. Yeah.
You'd be surprised that after the third or fourth time you've asked them to come to the Gemba, they just automatically start coming.
Well, yeah. It's funny though. The question is good, Erik, because it sounds strange. And DJ just said about the characters at executive level, but some executives do not come from the operator level. They feel uncomfortable there. All those big machines and logistics, and they know it theoretically, but being there in between all those welders and other operators, it's a different world. And quite some executives are not so used being there. They feel uncomfortable. So try to find a way to raise their comfort level. I mean, you don't have to tell them how to deal with a machine. Just come and look. That's it.
Thank you. Mitchell, you have next question.
Yes, so I like the approach of DJ, but we also had these official storyboard sessions. We named it process design reviews when we had a deadline before ordering a production line or ordering a big order. We had these process design reviews with top management or senior management. And most of the times when it was not clear for them what we wanted to do in a presentation, we invited them to the production line and let an operator speak with the bottlenecks he faced. And we also had a board there where we set up some pictures of what the faults are in the process. And this was very good to explain them on site, the difficulties we face. But also when approaching a new motor line, machining line, we also did these cardboard sessions. And then we also brought them to the Gemba.
Yeah, I
So
think that's very valuable
visualizes.
insight. Yeah, that's very valuable insight because, you know, and whether it be designing a new line or designing a new product, you know, briefing in rooms, everybody's like, oh, but they don't really get all the nuances on all the challenges. So bringing them to the Gemba, fantastic insight. Yep.
Thank you. Gergana, you have a question.
Yes. Hi, really great session. Thank you for all wisdom that you are bringing, Patagonia and DJ. For
Thank you, Gergana.
for our company, DJ is our lean wizard. So thank you.
Right.
I just reflected to everything that have been brought here, zooming in and zooming out about leader standard work. So through my 20 years, I've been on different leadership roles, managing people and processes. But if we go back to the template, I really like the middle part, where we keep some notes that allows us to keep our creativity and flexibility. And fully agree that we start from us. But if I tell you that after 20 years in this industry, I'm overwhelmed by being tracked and having a sheet for my day-to-day activities, what would you recommend for such kind of leader?
Ask that last question again, because I didn't quite get it. Please say that again.
If I tell you that some leaders are overwhelmed by filling different sheets and tracking their time, because it shows them that they might not be focusing on the right thing and they don't want to have this written.
Yeah. Again, LSW is designed. I think it's a great question, by the way, Gergana. But LSW, you need to be creative with it for certain people. Certain people will not want to carry a piece of paper around. You know, they don't want, they'd rather use their planner, you know. So the whole goal is the same points: time, activities, notes, and then multiple things that you do, plus planning for other things. Yeah. So those are the 4 core areas of LSW. And as long as you can embed that thinking in what they're doing on a daily basis, that's where it'll take hold. Start slow, start small, start for 2 hours. You know, do the morning meeting and then 1 hour after that. Just start with that. See how it takes hold. Don't try to make them do their entire day all at once, you know, because a lot of people have a lot of things that they have to, you know, mentally go, this is valuable to me. They've got to see that value first. But you, as the person who's there helping them and coaching them, you should show yours to them. This is how I do it. Now, you don't have to do it the same way, but this is the core pieces you got to have. Yeah. So that's what I'd recommend. Second thing is always challenge them. I think that's the second piece that a lot of people don't do. They just accept. Yep, you did it. Great. You know, why don't you ask the question, what went well? What can you do better on? You know, so what went well is, I don't really know. Well, if you don't know, then why did you do it? If you don't feel anything went well, then what do we need to make better, right? Because otherwise we need to stop doing this. You know, you don't want to force feed it. You want them to understand it creates opportunity for them to say no to people that want them now. That's what leader standard work does. It's, you look at your thing, somebody says, hey man, yeah, we need to have about a 15-minute talk. Are you available right now? You can go just like this. No, but I am at 11:15. So now they're working on your schedule. You're not letting the monkey control you. Yeah. I think those are some insights I think would help you. Yeah.
Yes, great. And Patagonia expert, how would you approach such kind of leaders? What's your experience?
Our experience is that team leaders are quite often on their own. I mean, we complain a lot about how they're not performing as a leader. But the other side is they are pretty much alone. The operators are with a lot. They are the professionals. The team leaders, we expect them to do day starts, 5S, etc. But actually, those Gemba core activities are not that easy. And then we are hired as trainer to train them as team leader to conduct, I don't know, a day start or something like that. And then we experience that it's quite some information on a day start. It's quite you would have to be competent to lead a group, to talk to a group, to receive the information, to digest everything, to start problem solving, etc., etc. So, and from that perspective, we are hired to train them. But as a matter of fact, consultants and trainers like us leave the building again. And then their leader should step in. It might be a department leader, a production leader, whoever. And we always see a disconnection there as well. So the production leader, if I may use that word as a symbol of the leader of the team leader, should be there to guide them, to coach them, to give them feedback on a day start. The funny thing is, we quite often hear production managers say, oh no, I'm not going to stand with the day start. That's his job. I don't want to interfere. Well, that's wrong. That's entirely wrong. You should be there to help, to observe, to give them a comfortable feeling. And afterwards you sit together and you coach them, you give them information, what is right, what is wrong, what can be better, etc. And then the next time it goes better. And operators will get used to being, to seeing the production manager or logistics manager there with the day starts. That's fine. That's all fine. We are all together to learn. So perhaps the production leader learns something. That's all fine. So help each other.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there's a great example of what happened yesterday on the shop floor.
Well, I can tell you just an old story that really is emblematic of the way you create value. Yeah, sort of that circle you made reference to, right? Smiling. So in the early 80s, I actually learned from Dr. Deming himself in San Diego, California, total quality management, right? And specifically, I went through a workshop with him called Statistical Process Control, SPC. And there was this admiral from, by the way, the name of the facility was Naval Rework Facility. Everybody got a laugh out of that, right? You're reworking stuff. So why didn't you get it right the first time, right? That's Dr. Deming thinking, yeah? So anyways, they invited him up on stage and he was going to do the red bead experiment and all of that. And when the admiral walked down, he walked out. So he goes, well, hey, just so you know, I'm done too. If it's not important to the admiral, it's not important to me, right? So everybody in the room, there's like 60 to 100 people in this room, and we're all like, what? We came all the way from all over the planet just to be a part of this, and now you're walking out too. And about 15 minutes later, this admiral walks back in. He goes, yeah, you know, you could tell it wasn't planned, but boy, they tap danced really well at the end. The admiral said, you know what? I just wanted everybody in this room to realize that you got to get leadership on board. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So I demonstrated how leadership just walks out and they do their thing and TPS and lean and it's transformation. That's over there. No, they have to be involved all the time. So during the entire session, then the admiral was there for that entire engagement. And so I'm just trying to bring it full circle with you're going to have leaders that aren't involved. Don't waste your time with them. Only waste your time with yourself and those you can influence. And the more you start to do it for yourself, the more your circle of influence grows, the more you will be able to influence other leaders. And I think that's the power behind this kind of profession that we're in optimizing organizations. Yeah. And that you have so much influence over so many different aspects of the business that you need to really take care of the relationships that you're involved with and grow each one of them different to get to the point where you need to go. Okay.
Thank you. Reminds me of the factory we went to in Japan, and there was this management who made a promise to its people after receiving questions for improvement. They said, you have an answer within 5 days. It was like, wow. I never saw it here in the Netherlands, but they made a promise to their people. They want something, but then they also did, so that's real involvement. That's what you refer to also, of course.
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
Okay,
Sounds good.
Let's wrap up. Want to finish?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for being with us. If you have more questions on this topic, or maybe other questions, please don't hesitate to call or email us, as it is our mission to bring all those tools to your daily business and make it work for you. Next, Lean Unplugged will be in 4 weeks from now. Then Bart Page and DJ Duarte will present all insights on problem solving quickly using PSEQ as mentioned already. On behalf of my colleagues, I wish you a good day. I hope to see you next time and say bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adios, amigos. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.